So the rest of this video is going to be highlighting some of the weird things about this case that I want to highlight and see if you've got any ideas about. So this piece of the PCA has very vague and I think misleading wording in some points as well, but I think it's probably intentional for good reasons. And this is one of them. So a video of a suspect video as described below. Now, in the other PCA like this for the other policeman that attended the scene, he says here video of a suspect vehicle as described below. And some people think that this is just a typo, but I think this is intentional. And I think video of a suspect video is actually talking about video on Dylan's phone. I think she actually videoed the perp. I think she took a video of the perp in the house. This is just my gut feeling. And so I think, you know, they're talking about that as well as the suspect vehicle video. And this is their way of getting it into the PCA without actually letting the defense know about that or something. I don't know, something like that. I've got a feeling they've actually got video of Bryan in the house from DM's phone. And I think that's why she was so terrified. That's my guess. Okay, so that's just my guess. So I may be completely wrong, just a hunch. So another thing that's really weird about this case is this picture that was posted by Dylan on the 13th of November before around 2 o'clock, I think. So we think just before the crimes. And it seems to be of Maddie's room painted with, I mean, now we think it's blood. Then I'm sure they thought it was just red paint and just a joke or just a laugh or something. As part of this Kill the Clones video, setting up the set or something in Maddie's room or something. It's just all very weird. So if this really is what this is, if this really is Maddie's room and it was posted on that night at 2 o'clock, just before the murders, then it's extremely creepy, extremely weird. I mean, it could be a fake, who knows? So on the bed, it says, "You gave me hope, that was the worst of it." On here, and that's what Jeff H, the guitarist, told me because I couldn't read what it said here. So you know, that would suggest that either BK or the perp was angry at Maddie because she maybe made him think that he was gonna get sex from her or something, and then he didn't, or something like that. I don't know, that kind of thing. Again, it sounds very incel like to me, very Elliot Rodgers like, you know. I don't know what the Charlie business is about. I don't even know what that means. Does anyone know what this Charlie business is all about? I feel like I'm missing some pieces of the puzzle here. So this Killing the Clones video was meant to be broadcast that night at midnight, I've been told, and all the people at the grub truck were supposedly watching this video. And now we're wondering if that video was actually a live killing, like a snuff movie of these 4 people being killed, that the killer was getting some kind of satisfaction out of, that they were all watching it happen, thinking it was a joke, but it was real or something. I don't know. I mean, to me, from what I've heard about these killings, if you saw that live, you would know that these people were really dying for real. I mean, it sounds pretty horrible. So I don't know. This all sounds a bit far-fetched to me, this whole Killing the Clones thing, but also, from what I've learned about Bryan Kohberger, I think he might be very warped. So I think, I mean, some of the posts that we think he's made are very, very warped. And, you know, I think he really, if it really is him and he is the perp, I think he has a real mental problem that, you know, he gets a kick out of this stuff, and it's extremely, really weird and evil and, oh, you know, so it's possible. So the other thing about this set of killings that's a bit weird is the whole numerology thing. We know that Kohberger was born on 11/21, so that's his date of birth. We know that the killings happened in 11/22 house. It looks like he wanted to frame the people in 11/21 house, maybe. He also did or intended to do the crimes on 12, although it crept into 11:13, we believe. And then he posted as Trey Patterson, we believe, as interested in other crimes that happened at weird dates, right? So 11/21/21 is this one. And he's saying in this post, if you don't see it, you're blind or a part of it. Look at the time it broadcast. So the time it broadcast was 12/21, right? So I think there is some stuff about numerology here. There's also the Amityville horror numbers, which I think one of the houses was 11/22, I think, and there was another date that was around this time, maybe 11/13, I think. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. I don't know if any of that has any relevance, but it seems like, if this is the killer was interested in dates like this and interested in numerology. So definitely it could be something. So another thing that was really weird was this Eugene, Oregon Hyundai Elantra, which it appeared to have crashed on December the 16th, I believe. And it seemed to have been dumped after the crash. And the log entry for that whole crime, that whole crash and everything, on December the 16th seemed to just disappear. It was at 7 a.m. And as you can see here, from 6:59 to 7:29 a.m., there's no entries in the police blotter. There's also some time missing between 8:12 and 8:28, which again is considered suspicious, is probably related to this. There was a whole lot of mystery around this whole Eugene, Oregon Elantra. You can see in my other videos all the information that ties this Elantra back to the house property manager of 11/22. His name's Dan Etsy. It seems like his stepson might have been driving this Hyundai Elantra at the time of the murders, and he lived in the house right next door to 11/22. There's a whole lot of stuff linking those two together. So it's possible that before Bryan drove all the way across to Pennsylvania for Christmas, that he drove to Oregon and dumped the car in Oregon before driving over to Pennsylvania. We're not sure. We're not sure how that car got to Oregon. Just some other notifications about that Eugene, Oregon Hyundai Elantra. People were speculating that the car came over the Cascade Mountain Range because of that red cinder dust that was on the car. They could spot that, they could see that. And, coming from another direction, it would not have that cinder dust. So this is an observation, okay? So the Cascade Mountains and Central Oregon are east of Eugene, and Idaho is east of that. So it seems like it came that way across the Cascades and Central Oregon. So there's been a lot of speculation about this, I call it bag man, the guy that I think is a guy. I mean, I think when you look at this particular screenshot, it looks very much like a guy with two bags. And I think he's got a shower cap on. And I think he's wearing a Tyvek suit under this white thing, whatever he's wearing. So I think this is Kohberger coming to the crime scene. This is what I expected him to look like. I thought, how did he get to the crime? He had a shower cap on. He had to have, because there's no hairs, like he didn't leave any hairs at the scene. He must have had a Tyvek suit on, otherwise, some of his skin cells would be at the scene. He must have had gloves, which I'm assuming are in these bags. He must have had a knife, at least one knife, probably two. He must have had the knife sheath with him. So I'm guessing there were bags. And also I think there's like a shower curtain, right? So this is exactly how I thought the perp would be dressed for this crime. So people have looked at this and said, no, it's a woman. Well, first of all, this screenshot, I think, shows it's a man. It looks very much like a man. Also, his walk, I think, is very similar to the Kohberger walk. I saw some video of him when he was younger, just walking along, and it looked exactly a kind of a lopped walk. I'm guessing his family, like his sisters or something, would know exactly who this is. So anyway, what I thought was, let's look at an unbiased source to find out whether this is a woman or a man and how tall the person is. So I asked AI, so ChatGPT. So let's have a look at that. So first of all, ChatGPT actually enhanced the image so that we could see it a bit clearer. And then ChatGPT focused on approximating the height of the individual based on the surroundings and an assessment of any visible gender indicators. So based on this analysis, they think that the person is about 5'11", which is basically 6 feet, right? Determining whether the individual is male or female, the visual indicators such as body shape, clothing, and gait aren't distinctly clear. However, I could attempt a deeper analysis if more is needed. So I said, yes, please. So there's a deeper type of analysis that it can do for this kind of stuff. So it said, the body build suggests a broad shoulder structure, which may imply a masculine build, but this is not definitive. Clothing style, the person appears to be wearing a loose top, which could be a jacket or heavy shirt. The bottom clothing seems to be straight or baggy, potentially masking body contours that might indicate gender. So to me, this is saying he's purposely trying to hide his gender, basically. And also just use your common sense. A woman would not dress like that, I don't think, especially not a student around there, trying to look feminine, look attractive, that kind of thing. Typically, they're not going to dress in clothes that kind of mask their gender, I think, typically. I mean, that's not true of all women, of course, but just generally speaking. Gait and posture, the person's stance seems more relaxed, with arms appearing straight down. This could suggest a casual gait, but it's hard to confirm gender solely from posture in this image. So this was using the image. So there were two images actually. There were the image that we just saw of the perp at 11:28 coming to the scene, and there's another one at 3:15, and I asked it to analyze both of those. So at 3:15, I think it's the same person, but they're dressed in different clothing. So it analyzed both of those, and this is what it came up with.
So this is just to show you what that Eugene, Oregon Hyundai looked like. We did like a pretty thorough analysis on what kind of car it was, and it seemed to match the description of that Pamela Gallagher owner document that we saw earlier. The only thing was that we could not see a sunroof on this one. So we think this is that car, but we think there's another car involved in this whole thing that did have a sunroof. So I think in total there are 3 Hyundai Elantras and at least 1 black truck and 1 e-bike. So it's quite complicated. So as you see here, we had a number of car experts look at all of this. They confirmed that it is the Elantra series GLS Limited series, and it is a 2013. So that seems to coincide with this document on the right here, the ownership document that Pamela Gallagher owned it and so on. The lights on the back of the car seem to confirm that this is a 2011 to 2013, and also the stock wheels seem to confirm that it was that. There was a lot of people who really know this kind of stuff on the forums. I know nothing about this, so I can't take any credit for any of that. Now, there are 2 YouTube channels that I want to highlight here. Idaho for Revealed and Idaho for Betrayed. I feel like they're created by the same person, and I think the person has a direct link to Bryan Kohberger in some way, or to the perp who did this in some way. Now, there are a lot of theories on that channel that sort of suggest that, Bryan Kohberger didn't do this and he was framed, and all kinds of background information that they highlight to indicate that maybe somebody else did it or something else is going on, conspiracy type theories and so on. Now just remember that I think those 2 channels are very directly linked to Bryan Kohberger or the perp, whoever that is. So in this case, one of the suggestions that this channel has made is that I don't know how you pronounce these names. Sage Francich. I don't know how you pronounce that. Probably I completely balls that one up. And Kane, their father and son, basically, who work with real estate. Now, this is the same company that Etsy runs. They have some kind of tie-in to the University of Idaho, and that's kind of seen as nefarious in this case. I don't know if there's any nefariousness around the University of Idaho. I certainly do question some of their actions towards what's been happening. But I don't think it's a conspiracy exactly, but I definitely think they're very image conscious and they're very worried that they're going to lose students because of all these murders and all that kind of thing. And of course, I think that's a pretty valid concern. I do think these two guys, though, are in that company that Etsy ran, which ran 1122 King Road. It's an LLC, 1122 King LLC. I think there is definitely that link. And also, this same company owns that house right next door, which I forget now. I think it's 1121, or it might be 1112. I forget. I know it's similar to those numbers. But basically, I think Dan Etsy's stepson lived in that house. And I think, this company, 1122 King LLC, also manages that house next door. So I do think that is true. I also think that they gave the camera footage from Taylor Avenue and Queen Road to the police that was showing. So there's a camera on the kind of front door looking out. I think they gave them that footage to the police, but also there's a camera that's right overlooking Xana's room, and we definitely know that they gave the audio from that camera to the police. We don't know that there was any video footage that was any use, but I'm guessing there probably was. I'm sure it was useful. So yeah, I do believe that, but I'm not sure about any conspiracy with the University of Idaho. So this is kind of just my guess of the timeline. It's very vague and not specific, but this is kind of my guess of what the timeline might have been to some extent, at least. It seems to me that at 11:20, the perp must have, by then at least, have put the tag from his own white Elantra onto the white Elantra at 1112 King Road, which later becomes that stolen Eugene, Oregon Elantra, and takes off the front tag from that car so that it looks like his car as far as the tag's concerned, but it's a different year, so it's clearly not his car, right? I think from there he walks to the parking lot by the back of the band field and drives the black truck. Maybe he'd parked it there earlier. So at 11:23, the black truck drives into Linda Lane 1320 camera, sort of in front of the dumpster view. And I think the perp is driving it at that point because the police edit that bit out of the video. So I think it's got some pretty damning evidence that is whoever the perp is, which I presume is Bryan Kohberger, because that's who the police have said they think did this. So we assume he parks that black truck in view of the 1330 camera and leaves, but we can't get that footage because the 1330 camera footage is not available for that time frame from like 11:15 to 11:59, that time period. So we don't know, right? So I think he leaves. I don't know how he leaves that area. Probably using that stolen Eugene Elantra, I'm guessing, but I don't know. So then the perp arrives. So presumably he drives that stolen Eugene Elantra to the end of Linda Lane and then walks around that corner, or he gets driven by someone else driving that car, or in some kind of like an Uber type car, I don't know. Anyway, he ends up at the far end of Linda Lane in that dumpster view, and he walks towards the camera, and it seems like he does some stuff with a key fob, and he's wearing some kind of kill kit. It seems like he has a shower cap on. He's probably got like a Tyvek suit underneath by the looks of things. He's got a couple of bags which probably have knives and stuff in them, I'm guessing. So then you can see the truck arrive around 11:23. Yeah, so the black truck arrives at 11:23, and then the perp arrives soon after, about 11:26:28. So there's the links to the videos there, so you can actually see that happening. So we think that the perp had a cell phone and a key fob and possibly a headlamp, I think, as well, but I'm not absolutely certain about that. So presumably at that point he leaves the kill kit in the black truck in preparation for the murders later. I can't find any footage of him walking back from that black truck round to the other end of Linda Lane, the far end of 1320 View, but I think that's probably what he does. He walks back there, gets into the Eugene Elantra, the Eugene stolen Elantra that we call, but which basically belonged to the house next door, 1112 King Road. So I think he drove that car home, and I think then Bryan gets back to his apartments, and as he gets back to the apartments, he intentionally causes a hit and run right in front of his apartments, so that police will be present right in front of his apartments during the critical time that night. So I'm guessing he drives the Elantra from Eugene, Oregon, or the one from 1112 King Road, the stolen Elantra, whatever we want to call that. He drives that just to the side of his apartment so that he can go back later on. And then he leaves his own car in front of his apartment, and it will get locked in by the police because it's in the way of this hit and run, I'm guessing. Something like that. Somehow he causes that hit and run. That can't be just a coincidence. So his own Elantra is probably parked right in front of the apartment at this point. The police would see it on their body cams and so on, and that's kind of an alibi that he is at home, or his car is at home that night at that point in time. Now, that is what I thought until he gave his alibi. Now, he's given his alibi as being in Wawa Park now, and I believe he may say that he got driven there by a friend or something like that, because I think his car was parked outside his apartment. I may be wrong, but we'll see. So at 2:44 a.m., it seems that Bryan leaves his apartment. What makes him leave at that point, I don't know for sure. My guess is that he has some way of monitoring Kaylee, and he knows that she is calling Jack, and he sees that as the signal to do whatever he's going to do. Now, how he knows that, I don't know. It could be that he has some kind of spy camera on her laptop, like that spy wallpaper software that we talked about before, which was associated with some of his fake IDs. That could have been watching her. He might have some way of monitoring her security cameras in the house. I believe he may have installed them, or Steve Gonsalves may have installed them with his help or something like that. Something about that doesn't sit right with me. So it could be that. Or it could be that he has some kind of way of monitoring either her cell phone or her Echo, what's it called, Alexa Echo devices, that kind of thing in her house. I know they have a few of those. Or it could be on her cell phone. If maybe he was the dog walker or something like that, and he had to give Kaylee his phone number at some point, he might have said, give me your phone, I'll type in my phone number. And rather than putting his phone number in with his name, I think he put his phone number under Jack's name, and also put his name, as well for his phone number. So his name, he probably gave her a completely bogus name as well, I'm guessing. So I think when she called Jack, when she texted Jack, she might have been inadvertently calling or texting Bryan. And that might also be how he was kind of stalking her. There was a report that she was at, I think it was the Albertsons that we talk about a lot, but I'm not absolutely sure. But there was a supermarket that she was at on August the 21st, and she reported that two guys had kind of confronted her in the car park and made her feel very uncomfortable. She called the police. And later that day, Kohberger was stopped by the police. So I think that was linked. I think they believe he was the one who, or he was one of those men who came up to her in the car parking lot and kind of made her uncomfortable. And, you know, whether you call that stalking or harassment or whatever you call it, I think that's what she meant when she was saying to people that she's being stalked and she was scared. And that's why one of the reasons I think she moved home for a bit, and she was not sure about coming back to town and so on. So that went off in a little bit of a tangent. But so at 2:44 a.m., Bryan leaves the apartment for whatever reason. I think it's because he knows that Kaylee is trying to get back with Jack, and this is his moment to do the deed that he's about to do. So at this point, when he leaves his apartment, the police say that he is driving a 2014 to 2016 Elantra. So he could be in his own Elantra, or he could be in that other Elantra we're talking about, which had a sunroof on it. So we don't know, okay? But anyway, he's seen going north on Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way. Now, this location is an interesting location. It's kind of right in the heart of Washington State University. And from the parking lot there, you might walk to the chemical department, chemical labs. You might walk to the criminal, I think it's called the Criminal Justice Department, something like that. And there's a couple of other areas there that you might walk to that I think have to do with IT and networking at Washington State University. So he could be there for a number of reasons, but he stays there for a few minutes. I think it's about 8 minutes. So he's doing something while he's there. Now, I've heard, and I can't validate this in any way at all, I've heard that there was a theft of a chemical from the chemical lab right there at this time of night. And if that is true, this chemical apparently can get rid of blood at the scene of a crime and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bryan stopped there so that he could steal the chemical from the lab before doing the crimes. The other thing that's been floated around is just across the road from Stadium Way, sort of if you go down Stadium Way to I-95? I can't remember what that road is called. Then Brent Kohberger lives just off of there. His coffee apartments are right there. That could be another reason he was in this area. Maybe picking up Brett Kohberger, who knows? I definitely think there's more than one person involved in this. I think Bryan had help. There's a number of places where there are two cars driving at the same time, so it has to be not just Bryan. After the crimes, for example, at about 4:35, 4:40, something like that, there are two cars there's the black truck and a car. And I think the car goes first up Blake Avenue across to Sigma Chi kind of area. And then the black truck goes up that way as well and kind of follows it. And I think those two are working together. So I believe somebody helped him in some way, whether it was just driving a car or something, I'm not sure. But I definitely think there's more than one person involved in this, although they may not realize what they're doing. I don't know. I think the police think only one person is important in all this. Now, that could be because Brett Kohberger is dead. I don't know. Maybe they thought it was two people, and Brett Kohberger is now dead, so maybe, only one is important now. Oh, so that road I was trying to think of was SR 270. I don't know why I said I-95. Sorry, it should have been SR 270. So yeah, so SR270 is right at the end of Northeast Stadium Way, and we definitely think that Bryan, or the police definitely think that Bryan went up and down Nevada Street and across Stadium Way. We're not sure if he went right or left at the end of that. It was a bit ambiguous in the PCA. So not sure, but at the bottom of here you can see the forensic examiner identified the vehicle as a 2014 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. So he did something there. He could have swapped the plates at this point. This could be where he swapped the plates. That's from one car to another. I don't know, but I think he might have been stealing that chemical stuff at this point. So this is just a quick close-up of that whole area so that you can see a little bit, where we're talking about. So I am told that just north of Northeast Stadium Way and Southeast Nevada Street, so that corner where those two meet, near that Spark Academic Innovation Hub, somewhere around there is the chemistry lab, I'm told. And just behind it is the criminal center. So what do they call it? The Criminal Justice Center, I think they call it, something like that. And there's also this WSU Access Center that I've heard has some of the IT stuff going on. So it could be something to do with that too. I don't know. So Brett Kohberger apparently lived in apartments almost exactly where Sellers Calzone is written at the bottom of this map, kind of just down there. So, he could have been just coming here to pick up Brett Kohberger, I don't know, swap cars, swap plates, or steal that chemical from the lab. I don't know what's going on here, but it seems like a significant location anyway. So at 3:12 to 3:15 a.m., that's the next significant thing on the timeline that I can find. The perp, I think, dresses normally this time, not in all that, not the shower curtain, shower cap, not the Tyvek suit or anything like that. He's like dressed like a student. Walks to the 1320 camera dumpster view. So I think this is the same guy, but just dressed completely differently. So he has a cell phone and a key fob, and he might also have a headlight. We're not sure. I think he does. He puts something in the dumpster, or he retrieves something from the dumpster, and then he walks across to kind of Queens Road Apartments alleyway, the one that gives you access to 1122 King Road, possibly gets the dog Murphy at this point, and then comes back. Then he walks to the black truck, appears to put something in the truck, maybe Murphy. He changes into something like a Tyvek suit or a Dickies suit, something like that, it seems. He's rustling, he's, probably getting the knives out of the bag or something, I don't know. Does some kind of prep for what he's about to do, I think. Then he goes back and forth in front of that 1330 camera to the car, to the Elantra, I think, behind the black truck. I don't know it's the Elantra, you can't see it at this point. And then he possibly e-bikes around at some point as well. And then he leaves, I think, in the Elantra, or one of the Elantras, I should say. At around 3:30 approximately, he drives that Elantra back sort of to the side of the parking lot and around to the left side of that parking lot, and goes down behind the Queens Road Apartments to the back parking lot. Now, of course, the back of that is at the back of 1122. So he may park at the end of, behind 1122, he may park at the end of the parking lot, or he may go up to that Willenta Drive house behind. I don't know how close you can get to that house up there. I don't know if you can drive all the way up there or not. Then I think is when he kills Maddie and Kaylee between 3:30 a.m. and 3:43 approx. So then there's a piece that I don't quite understand how it fits into all of this. At 3:26 to 3:20 a.m. approximately, the PCA says that the car is seen on the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow and goes westbound on Steiner Avenue at State Highway 95 in Moscow at approximately 3:47 a.m. So I thought that this was later. I thought this was at 3:45 to 3:47 a.m. So I'm not sure if the cameras are a little bit out, like about 19 minutes out, I think it would be. What I thought happened here was the perp finishes the murders of Maddie and Kaylee, realizes, or drives off in a hurry to get away from the scene of the crime, gets to around that gas station area that we know took pictures of the Hyundai Elantra, doubled back on himself because he realized he'd forgotten the sheath, and then drove back along Steiner Avenue and Highway 95 back to the scene of the crime. This is what I thought happened. But the timing on the PCA says this happened between 3:26 and 3:28. I thought it was about 3:45 a.m. to 3:47 a.m. So either the timing's out on the cameras, or I've got something wrong, or maybe somebody else was driving that car. I don't know. I can't quite work it out. Either way, we can see at 3:47 that the perp is back in front of the 1330 camera, possibly on an e-bike, we think. Somewhere between there and 3:50 a.m., he runs over toward 1122 King Road, probably assessing the situation to make sure no one's realized what's happened yet or something like that. And he runs over there, and then at 3:58 a.m., I'm not sure if he's driving the Elantra at this point or the DoorDash is driving the Elantra at this point. It's a very weird situation. But we think the DoorDash arrives around 3:58, 3:59. So Emma, who's the DoorDash driver, we believe, sees Bryan and can identify him allegedly. So Jay Abry of Pavarotti fame, he tells us that Emma can see Bryan and she can identify him. So she saw him presumably do that funny drive-by where he's in the Elantra and he drives backwards and forwards, and then he goes and does a three-point turn and comes back and he's obviously agitated and nervous and full of adrenaline or something. So, he definitely does something like that at about this time, somewhere around 4 a.m., okay? At 4:04 a.m., we think the perp, so I'm saying Bryan, goes round the back of the house and enters via that sliding door. We think he tries to get up to the sheath, which is in Maddie and Kaylee's room that he's left under Maddie, but he doesn't get there, I think. I think what happens is Ethan spots him and confronts him, and there's a struggle at the top of the stairs between Bryan and Ethan. So this is what I think Dylan hears when she thinks it's Kaylee playing around with Murphy upstairs. She's just thinking that because normally it's Kaylee up there or Maddie. And what would all this noise be? It would only be if Kaylee was kind of playing with Murphy, right? But I think what actually is happening is Ethan and Bryan Kohberger are fighting and struggling at the top of the stairs. So at around 4:12 to 4:17 a.m. approx, we think that the perp, which I think is Bryan, kills Ethan and then Xana. We think he walks past Dylan. Now, he has visual snow, and it's dark, and he has adrenaline surging through his veins. So I think he just doesn't see her. I really believe that. I think he really believes that Dylan is downstairs asleep. I think at this point, the perp or Bryan Kohberger, he goes outside that sliding door and puts his shower curtain on the floor, strips naked, puts all of the evidence into that shower curtain, and does it all up in a package of some kind. And he is completely naked, and this is what we hear, that Bethany saw him naked as he left. So I think he ran up the hill and left his kill kit somewhere behind the house, and Bethany saw him. That's just my guess from the little snippets of bits and pieces that we keep hearing about all of this. So then Remember, he's still naked. I think he drives the Elantra from somewhere up there behind the house round to Willenta Drive, to that other house that we're talking about behind 1122. I think he changes his clothes. Maybe he has a shower even. He has a very short period of time, though. It's somewhere between 4:18 and 4:22, so it's a very, very quick shower if it is one. But then he runs down the hill behind 1122, picks up the kill kit, runs across to the black truck, and we see him leave at 4:22:40 in the black truck. I think he then drives that black truck up to Willenta Drive. Now, apparently, he takes the long route. He goes right and then takes Blake round. But I think he goes up to Willenta Drive, swaps back into the Elantra, and then leaves, I'm guessing. Now, which Elantra he drives back, I can't guess. So there's different theories about what he does after this point, whether he goes south via Genesee and Uniontown and back up to Pullman. I don't know. I think there are two cars at this point. I think there is one Elantra that does all that goes all the way down, Johnson, Genesee, Uniontown and Pullman. I think there's another one that goes the back way, which is basically just near Conestoga Drive and West Palouse River Drive, turns kind of right and goes towards Washington, goes up to Johnson Road and up north to Pullman that way. I think, just reading in between bits and pieces in the PCA and some things that don't quite match time-wise with the phone and the car and some other things. So I'm just guessing that's what's happening, that there's two cars at that point, but I don't know for certain. So this is an example of one of the things that I don't know for certain about what happens after the crime. So approximately 5:25 a.m., a white sedan, which was consistent with the description of suspect vehicle 1. So I think what this is saying is one of the two Elantras, both of which probably had the right tag number on the back and probably had a missing front tag or something like that. So they don't know which one, maybe, was observed on 5 cameras in Pullman, Washington, and on WSU campus cameras. The first camera recorded the white sedan was at 1300 Johnson Road in Pullman. The white sedan was observed traveling northbound on Johnson Road. And then Johnson Road, it notices here that Johnson Road leads directly back to West Palouse River Drive in Moscow. So did that particular Elantra drive directly from the murders down West Palouse River Drive and come down to Johnson Road? And that's the one we're seeing here. Okay. Now, after that, this white sedan was then observed turning north on Bishop Boulevard and northwest on SR 270. At approximately this time, the white Elantra was observed on cameras traveling northbound on that Stadium Way at Nevada Street. Again, that same location that we saw it on earlier. So why is it going back to that same location as it went to earlier, where we think he might have stolen the chemical stuff from the lab? And then he goes down Stadium Way at Grimes Way, and then Wilson Road and Cougar Way. So the maps in the PCA are so terrible, so I tried to make a kind of a map that kind of showed you what I think they're trying to say here. So this is King Road, where the murders happened. Now, it sounds like the car could have gone either this way. So this is an example of a way that kind of makes sense of some of the stuff in the PCA. So from King Road, that car could have gone to West Palouse River Drive, either the back way, which I think it did, via Willenta Drive, or it could have gone the right-hand way. I don't know. They said something about Conestoga Drive, so I presume that they think it went that way somehow, but I don't know exactly. So West Palouse River Drive is the location we were looking at before, where we said that there was a trailer park right here, and that might be a place where he might have left the knife. kind of near the Arboretum. So we're not sure if that he left the knife there. It might have been there. Okay, so this road here goes directly over to 1300 Johnson Road, pretty much. So that's what I think they're saying on the PCA, and then went northeast Stadium Way and kind of up here, and then to those other places like Whitlow Road and so on. We'll see that in the next slide. So this is kind of trying to show you how it went. So according to the PCA, from 1300 Johnson Road, it basically went up to Southeast Bishop Boulevard and up to East Main Street and then to Northeast Stadium Way. So this is Northeast Stadium Way. Bishop Boulevard is kind of this bit here, and Johnson Road is here. So this is, around where we think he might have stolen the chemicals from the labs, and Brett Kohberger lives kind of here. And then they think he drove this way. So did he drop Brett Kohberger off? Did he do something here? We don't know. And then he went up here to where he lives, basically, to the Steptoe Apartments. Just to see that in a little bit more detail, this is like, Johnson Road is kind of down here, then Bishop Boulevard is here, Northeast Stadium Way is here, and, went past Grimes Way, Wilson Road, and up to Steptoe Apartments, basically. So here's the end of that journey from Northeast Stadium Way and so on, kind of up this way. Steptoe Apartments is here, so we don't know if he went this way or this way. Remember, the police were around his apartment, so he might have parked a little way away and walked in or something like that. We don't know. So this is just to give you some idea of what they found at Steptoe Apartments. So this is obviously Kohberger's residence while he was at WSU. So they found a padlock, round in shape, in the living room closet. Based on their training and so on, they recognize that this padlock is the shape of locks that you use for storage units. The lock is round in shape, and the design limits the ability for it to be cut off. A key matching the lock was found in the living room in the TV stand next to the keys, which appeared to be for the Wilson Short office. So Wilson Short is where Kohberger had an office for. He was a teacher's assistant. He had an office there, so his keys were there for that. So the officer contacted the apartment coordinator, who confirmed there are storage closets available to residents located in the same buildings as the laundry areas there. So they went and confirmed there was a storage closet with that address, G201, which is Kohberger's apartment. And the storage closet was in building F of Steptoe Apartments. The storage door is not locked, and the storage door is slightly ajar. He believes the storage was likely used by Kohberger to store items and was likely accessed between the time of the murders and his travel to Pennsylvania. It's also believed that storage closet would probably have trace evidence contained in it. And there's, evidence that they want to have a look. So he's asking for probable cause here. So this is the collection log of stuff found at those apartments. So things like he had a black glove, a receipt with a Dickies tag, so that could suggest that he had a Dickies suit, which is like a Tyvek suit, really. Some Marshall's receipts, so he bought some stuff at Marshall's. The clothes that he bought at Marshall's might be the same as that guy is walking in the 315 video at Linda Lane, for example, so that might tie into that, for example. You never know. The dust container from the Bissell vacuum, these are notorious for containing a lot of evidence. So they seized these on purpose to put a criminal at a particular crime scene. And for example, if Murphy had a single hair that got onto Bryan, that Bissell vacuum might contain one of those hairs. It might just contain some vegetation from outside of 1122 King Road or something like that. Anything to connect the perp to the crime. There's some hair strands. if any of those hair strands belong to any of the girls, or Ethan had hair on there or anything like that. The Fire TV stick, very important. Just knowing what things he watched on TV, for example. Was he watching lots of serial killer TV programs? Was he watching YouTube and watching videos about killing, about how to get away with crime and that kind of thing? Yes, he was studying criminology, so that wouldn't be so weird, but it all adds to the case. So the possible animal hair, we think that is possibly Murphy, we hope. Now, if Bryan Kohberger is the dog walker as well, that obviously complicates things a little bit, because he would have access to Murphy, so an animal hair wouldn't be so weird. It wouldn't. I would definitely believe that probably Kohberger was the dog walker. That's my guess. But all these things can add up. Hairs in the shower tiles, if they belong to Bryan and there's one that belongs to one of the girls or something like that, that's possible too. There's a few other hairs and so on there. And also the computer tower. So the computer tower could theoretically have a treasure trove of information on it. I happen to think that Bryan Kohberger's too smart for that. I think it won't be on there. Maybe he'll have completely encrypted his disk in some way that can't be decrypted or something like that. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that will not really be much use to investigators. That's my guess. There's a lot of other things around here, a lot of things with red stains on them that were found to be negative, so they were not blood. There's one spot that might have been blood, it looks like. So a lot of these things are negative, but there's a couple of things that might be useful. So these are things they might have taken because they got a search warrant for it. Things like photos of any of the victims, any data compilations about planning a murder or being interested in serial killers and stuff. Again, yes, he studies that at university, so that wouldn't be so unusual, but if it was particularly relevant to the crime, it might pin something on him. You never know. We see his phone number here ending in 8458. They've got evidence now that proves that is his phone number. They've got his Wi-Fi logs, his data associated with that, his social media posts. Now, social media posts are going to be really critical in this case, I think, because I strongly believe that Bryan Kohberger used a number of fake aliases for his social media, and some of those will tie back to the girls, I think. I think as well, he got a bit full of himself after the crimes and started boasting on social media about things he knew about the crimes. I think that will also help incriminate him. Whether or not that is on this cell phone, or whether it was on a different cell phone or a different laptop that we'll never find, or that is completely demolished now, or whatever, I don't know. But I definitely think there is a social media trail, and I know that Facebook and other social media will have logs of everything he posted for a long time going back. Anything else like calendars, address books, contact lists, anything that helps understand what was going on in his life, that could help incriminate him too. So one thing I wondered when they were doing this search for Hyundai Elantras, they found Bryan's Elantra on November the 25th. Now, this is a date when I believe that Bryan was out of town at Thanksgiving, but it seems like his Elantra was still parked in front of his house, his apartment. So was that his Elantra? Was he driving his Elantra? Or, where was his... I think there were a number of Elantras here. So I'm not sure whether the one parked outside his house was his original Elantra and he was driving another one, or vice versa. However, the query located a 2015 white Elantra with a Pennsylvania license plate LFZ 8649. So they located that Elantra, they found it. Now at this point, remember, this car should not have that tag on it. It shouldn't have LFZ 8649 because it's after the 18th of November when he registered for the new tag. So if you look on the left-hand side here, I did some digging, and if you go in person, which we believe Bryan did, you get your tag immediately in Pullman, Washington. So if you don't go in person, it takes up to 3 weeks, but we think he went in person. So we think he had his new tag. So at this point in time, his new tag should be on his car. So I think he drove his car to Las Vegas with the new tag, and I think he left the old Elantra, which I think may be another Elantra with a sunroof, with his old tag on it at his apartment. Isn't that weird? And I think the Eugene Elantra was either on its way to Eugene, Oregon by this time, or it was somewhere else, right? And it probably didn't have either of those tags on it. It probably had its original tags on it or something like that. I don't know. So very, very complicated. So I think there are 3 Elantras. That's my guess right now. So remember the Oregon Elantra, the Eugene, Oregon Elantra, was not found until December the 15th. Now, December the 15th, coincidentally, is the date that Bryan theoretically set off for Pennsylvania on this huge long drive with his dad. So either someone else took the Oregon Elantra, Eugene, Oregon Elantra to Eugene, Oregon from Pullman or Moscow or whatever. Or Bryan, even though he was in Vegas, drove all the way up with someone else to move the car to Eugene, Oregon, and then came all the way back down just before he did this long trip across country to Pennsylvania. I think the latter is unlikely. I think somebody else dumped the Eugene, Oregon Elantra for him. Now, whether that person knew what they were doing or they thought it was just a stolen car that they were trying to get rid of, I don't know. But by then, I think we knew that the police were looking for an Elantra, did we? I can't remember. Maybe not. Maybe not quite by then. December the 15th, I'm pretty sure we did know by then. Anyway, so there is a whole enigma around these Elantras. So his own car at this point in time, so November the 25th, should have had this CFB 8708 title registration because it was after the 18th of November when he got his new tag, right? And it should also be on the front and the back of the car, right? This is, I think, the reason that the police lost Bryan, because they thought he was in Pullman, Washington with this tag on this car outside his apartment, but actually he was in Las Vegas with the CFB 8708 tag on both the front and back of his car, I think, at this point. So I think this is why they lost him. Right, so I think that's all on this page. Yeah, that's everything on this page. So note that now I am not talking about the car locations, I am talking about the phone locations, and that is very different. I think the phone was sometimes in a different place to the car, possibly in the other Elantra, possibly in the black truck, possibly just in someone else's car. I don't know. So the phone locations, at 2:42 a.m., the phone left Kohberger's apartment area in Steptoe Apartment. So you can see that on this map here. And it went south through Pullman, and it tracks to the same as the white Elantra that we now believe was a 2014 to 2016 Elantra, right? So it tracks to that up until it gets to Nevada Street. At 2:47 a.m., it's turned off or it's put into airplane mode or something like that. Now, this is right when he stopped at that Nevada Street location, that weird location that we were talking about. So just note that that's kind of then. So at the point where he may be stealing this chemical from the lab or he may be doing something else around there, we're not sure exactly what, that's when his phone goes off. I think that's significant. So because the phone is off from then until 4:48 a.m., obviously we have no way of tracking where the phone is between those 2 points, whether it was in airplane mode or whether it was off or what it was. So at 4:48 a.m., that's the next time we know where the car is. So sorry, the phone is, not the car. So the next time we know where the phone is, it's on Highway 95 near Blaine Road, Blaine, Idaho. Sorry. So if you look on this map here, it's where that blue track starts on the right-hand side, Blaine. So we think the phone went from Blaine down to Genesee, and then across to Uniontown somehow, and then north back up to Pullman, Washington. Now, this is a very different track to the track of the car as far as the PCA is concerned. Okay, so the phone went a different track to the car. Now, this could be that they were both in two different cars. Okay, so Bryan might have been in one of the cars and the phone might have been in the other car, right? Just bear that in mind.